Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Pat and today I'm bringing you guys my May wrap up. Okay, I feel like I say this every month, but I can't believe it's the end of the month and we're at June. We're halfway through the year and I feel like a lot of things have happened, but also not a lot of things have happened, you know? For this month, I finished a total of 8 books, which is very surprising because I feel like at the beginning of the month and some of the books I took quite a bit of time, but now I have 8 books. 2 of them are very short, so I guess that made up for it. Anyway, let's get started. So the first book that I read this month, that I finished this month, is Winter's Kiss by Marie Redkowski. This is the 3rd book in the Winter's trilogy, and I read that series years ago. I honestly didn't really remember much of what happened before, so I had to read summaries before. I didn't have time to read the 2 books again. So I decided to just read some summaries online and then I went into this book. I feel like I would have enjoyed this book a lot more if I read those 2 books, but I didn't really have time and I wanted to finish the series. Probably not a very good idea, but that's what I did. Anyway, I rated this a 4.5 stars. As I said, I still really enjoyed this book. Like the characters and the world and the politics are so very interesting and just compelling to read, and I really enjoyed it. The relationships between each other, not just I'm not just talking about the romantic stuff, I'm also talking about the friendship and the complexities of those relationships, as well as just the world. And these are all very smart, capable people. It's so nice to read about these characters that are not very dumb because some characters, they just feel so dumb sometimes. I don't know, for some reason this is how I find some characters. I mean, before it was fine with me, it was really cool to just see them being clueless and stumble around and figure themselves out and all of that, but now it's just why are you not thinking? This is common sense. So it's really refreshing to read these characters that are very capable and smart and also very interesting. So that is the first book by Marie Redkowski. The next book that I finished is Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. If you guys didn't know, I'm trying to follow the Daughters Book and Bone read along. Honestly, I'm always late. I'm always a week late into the book, and I haven't even finished the 3rd book. I haven't started yet because I'm finishing up a trilogy that I'm also reading. I'll get to that later. Anyway, Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm finding that I'm not really enjoying this book as I thought I would. I loved the 1st book when I was reading it before, and that was years and years ago, around the time that the 1st book first came out. I was reading that book, and so I was very young, and I remember really loving that book, and that book really cemented my love for such beautiful written fantasy stories. So I just had really fond feelings towards the 1st book, and so rereading the 1st book, I was kind of okay about it. I still really liked it, but it lost the very magical, appealing aspect of it for me. And reading this 2nd book, it feels jarring because it felt like there's a certain part that we missed in between the 1st and the 2nd books, where we start here. And so it's really confusing. It's kind of like me figuring out for the first 100, 150, 200 pages where we are and how we got to the point that we started with. I don't understand. I feel like we missed a lot of things in between, and definitely this, you're learning more about the world and, everything that needs to be learned, the war and all that. You're learning about that, and that's very interesting to me, and that's I really want to know what happens next and how it all will end in the last book. But I feel like with the 1st book, we don't really know about the fantasy world, about Eretz, because it's set in our world and we're following Karu as she through her life in our world. So I was very hyped up, very looking forward to learning about Eretz in this 2nd book, and I thought, we learn about the world and the magic system and the people, the cultures and all that, but we don't really get a lot of it in here. I mean, I get that we're still not in Eretz, but I feel like we skipped over very important parts. I understand how Karu got there, with who she is and, the things that she did and all that. I don't want to say any spoilers, but I feel like us as readers missed a lot of things. So yeah, I wanted to love this book, but I don't really, feel so into it as much as I did the first time that I read the first book. So yeah, that's the second book here. I definitely will be reading Days of Blood and Dark after I finish the books that I'm currently reading right now, which I'm about halfway through, so almost there. The next book that I read is Confessions by Kane Minato. I rated it as a 5 out of 5 stars, and this is a short novel, and this is like 200 plus pages, 220 pages, and this is so messed up. Like, this whole world thing is so messed up. If you guys didn't know, this is about a teacher who tells her students on her last day that her daughter, who died I think a month or so ago, was killed by some of the students in their class, in her class. So like during her last day, she says that to her students, and it's like she's telling them what happened and, you know, how it came to that point. And she's resigning, and it's her last day, and she like exacts revenge on these two kids, but she's also telling her story and how she got to that point and everything in between the death of her daughter and, you know, at her certain point in time. And in the beginning it was a little confusing because it was like a monologue type of telling of the story. So I was like, what's going on? Because I was also listening to this in audiobook, so I was like, wait, did she just ask me something? Did she just say a rhetorical question addressing me? What? So it was very confusing at first. But the characters in this book are also messed up, but I enjoyed it in a weird, that's a weird thing to say, but I really enjoyed it because we're seeing humanity at its worst, I feel like, which is also a weird thing to say that you liked and enjoyed, but still, you know, I did. It's showing you the complexity of human beings and how we can be like regular normal people who aren't really good or bad, maybe more good than bad, and then something happens and it's just like we snap and do some really shady decisions. Everything that has happened in this book, like, it's all related, and it's like it's all leading up to that point where people just snap and go crazy pretty much. And the thing about this is it doesn't feel very unrealistic. Like, I know these certain characters with their stories and their backgrounds and their choices and the people around them in their environment, they exist. It exists in our world, and, you know, people like this live among us, and they're not like exaggerations of people. Like, this actually happens, but because it's like all these people are like in this situation, in this place, that kind of like makes me feel comfortable with reading it. It's so messed up, but because it's so how do you say it, because it's like ridiculous to see like these people in one place in this situation, all of them making these just being here is like not very realistic. So that's kind of like where I can like see the line of fiction and nonfiction. So I'm still pretty okay with this book. So again, I really, really like this book. It's a good story, a good like examination of us being humans and making choices and the things that we have to go through, all of that. Oh, 4.5 stars. Not 5, 4.5. It's a short book. You're definitely going to be reading this one page after the other because you will want to know what happens next. So, highly recommend this book. If you like mystery and like just very human complexity, subject-based stories, stuff like that, you know? Yeah. The next book that I read is In an Absent Rain by Shannon McGuire. This is the 4th book in the Wayward Children series. I think there's 2 other books that will come out soon, or 1 more. Anyway, this is about we're following kids, or in this world, kids get lost into these fantasy worlds, and they're all very different worlds, and most of them come back and most of them also want to go back to this fantasy worlds because these fantasy worlds are tailored to what they need at the certain point where they get lost into it, and, you know, they just usually enjoy being in this world and they feel like they belong in these worlds. So usually a lot of them want to go back in this world, and we're following their stories and, you know, everything that they're going through. So it's like the whole premise of this whole series. And this book in particular, we're following one of the teachers that we're introduced to in the first book, called Lundy, and how, you know, how her story went and how she is the way she is in the first book. And the last book before this, Beneath the Sugar Sky, I didn't really enjoy. Like, it felt detached from the whole series itself. Like, I didn't really care much about the characters. Like, we didn't really get into it that much. And yeah, I get it. It's a short story, like 200 pages. But I didn't really get that in the first 2 books. So the third book was a bit of a disappointment to me, but this one I really liked. I rated it as a 5 out of 5 stars. With this one we get like really into the world and into the characters, and we're really just learning and following her story and the world that she's in, and it's just so good. The story, the world, it's so fantastic, and I really felt like I was in the story with her, like, you know. So I didn't feel that in the third book. So, you know, it was really good that I continued with the series even then, because I still like the third book. It's just not as good as the first two books or this fourth book. So anyway, I still really enjoy this book series. If you haven't read it, the hype is real. Read it. The next book that I read is Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. I rated it as a 4 out of 5 stars. Now, I heard a lot of mixed reviews about this book. Some people really like it, like love it. Some people don't really. I'm more of an in-between because, first of all, Sawkill Girls is about this like island where a lot of girls get lost throughout the years for the past, I don't know, 600, 100 years? So like, it's only a couple girls, but it's always unexplained, and like they don't know what happened and all that. So there's a lot of mystery going on around that. And so here we're following 3 girls that are related to this appearance and all of that. We're following Marian. She's the new girl in this place, and she has a lot of things going on with her life, with her family and her sister and all that. And she's weighed down by tragedy and hungry for love, that it says here. And then we're following Zoe, and she is one of the friends of the vanished girls, and she's lived, I think, for years in islands too. I don't think that's where she grew up, but she's been there for a long time, and she's not very popular-ish around, you know, like the regular one. She's called the pariah. So yeah, the next one is Val, and she's pretty much opposite of Zoe. She's the queen bee. She's the granddaughter of the daughter/granddaughter of the oldest, richest family that lives in this place called Sawkill Rock. And she knows about, like, she's related to this disappearances as well, and she has a role in it too. So we're following those 3 girls and their stories, and the world is so interesting. But I didn't really had a lot of time. We didn't really get a lot of time to explore it, nor did we really get the chance to explore it. We're really just following the story and them figuring out why these girls are disappearing and, you know, all that. So as much as the world and the fantasy and the magic in this book it's lacking. Like, we missed it. The focal point, I think, of this story is really the friendship. That's where it really shined. I really found the friendships in this book so refreshing, especially when it comes to female and non-female friendship, like female-male friendship and all that. It's really refreshing to see how, you know, they're not like catty girls. You know, like, we got the queen bee, we got the pariah, we got the new girl, but still, like, the dynamics between the 3 of them and just in between them, it's really refreshing to see. It's a very modern take on, you know, just friendships in general, because nowadays girls aren't really like that. I mean, we still see that, and some girls and people are still like that, but for the most part, we don't really get like very mean people and catty friendships now. So that was a really nice, refreshing take on friendships, and I really liked it. And just the friendship really kind of shined through because of everything that was happening in the story. Again, I wish we got more of the world and, you know, the how it works and all that, but still a really good read. 4 stars out of 5 stars. If you like a really good female friendship-ish, I would say you will like this. There are some relationships though in this story that I feel like we didn't really get to explore. So when some things happen, like bad things happen, you kind of just like, oh, okay. It's just really these 3 girls and their friendship that really stood out to me. The next book, I actually still don't have a rating for, but I think this is more of a 5 stars rating for me. The Power is The Power by Naomi Alderman. I think this is the type of book that you can't really rate it as anything, because it's more of an exploration of our world where women become the powerful people. And our world, even up until now, is very like male dominant and patriarch. So it's a very patriarchy world wherever you go, pretty much. So here we're introduced to the idea of what if like women undoubtedly became like so very powerful and like literally getting the power. Like women are just all over the world, they have like actual power, and it kind of like just turns the tables, and it makes you think about everything that we think and see now and how that is affected by our society and culture from way back when you know, men really are regarded as the greater sex. And you know, even though we are working to making things a lot more equal for everybody, there's still a lot of things that we need to work on, and we're still realizing that, oh yeah, it's a very male-based kind of perception. So it really just explores that, and I really enjoy this book. It's very complex. It really opens up a lot of discussions, and I think it's a really good book to read for anyone, whether you're a woman or not, whether you're a feminist or not. I feel like it's a really good book to read. It might be a little bit controversial for some people, but I think it's a really, really great book, and it just opens your eyes to, you know, how different angles of different perspectives could be seen. So again, a really good book. If I'm going to rate this, I'm going to rate this a 5 out of 5 stars. I don't want to rate it. I love this. I really enjoy this book. I feel like this is a great book to discuss among friends and teachers and students and you know, communities, I think. So now the next 2 books that I read are part of the trilogy that I'm currently reading right now. And that is 5th Season and the Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This is the first 2 books in the Broken Earth trilogy. I'm currently reading the 3rd book. As I said, this is the like book series where each of the books earned a Hugo Award every time it released. Like you see those, see that all 3 won the Hugo Award. So that's gonna tell you something. So this book, if you didn't know, this trilogy, the series, is about this world where the world is very crazy. Pretty much. It's like the world is ending just the whole time that they lived in this world. It's like a very dangerous world to live in, like major catastrophes all the time. There's a lot of things happening, like, you know, there's a volcano or something that erupts and covers like the whole world, and it's like droughts and famine for like a few hundred years, and then things kind of calm down and it happens again, and like there's a lot of different seasons, that's how they call it, of like just really major catastrophes. So, you know, we're in this world and it's so good. Okay, so the first book, and really just this main series, we are following Asun, she's in this world. We have people who are capable of controlling the earth. So they're called origins, and they're not really regarded as you would think, as, you know, the leaders and the people who protect people and all that. They're actually regarded as tools, and they're controlled by the guardians to kind of control their powers, because they are, you know, they can control the earth, and they're seen as enemies pretty much by people. And origins, it's not 100% genetical. Like, yeah, origin parents can definitely have origin children more often than not, but there are some like families who don't have any history of origins with them, who sometimes will get an origin in the family. So sometimes these kids, when they are realized as origins, they either get sent to the fulcrum, which is like where the guardians take these origin kids and like train them and, you know, teach them and all that, or sometimes they're killed. And so we're following here Asun in the first book. She comes home to find her younger son beaten to death by her husband, and her older daughter is missing and kidnapped by her husband, Jija, after Jija discovers that they were origins. So we're just following her as she's looking for her daughter, and she goes into this journey of just rediscovering the world too. And here we're following different people and their stories too in this world, and just really how we got here in this point in time. And I really enjoyed this first book. I feel like I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I like read it, like a good amount of it, like in one go, because I read it like in chunks throughout like a week, and that's my fault. I rated it as 4 stars. I feel like this would have been a 5-star read, 4.5 stars read for me, if I just had like a good amount of time to read a good chunks of this book, and like 50-20 pages in between. So I really still like this book. It was in the second book, The Obelisk Gate, that I really got into the story and the world and the people, and just here the stakes are even higher. We learned a lot about Isun and all these characters that we're following here in the first book, and you know, everything just that happened to Isun and all that. And here we're just learning more about the world itself and how this world came to this point where everything's just going wrong. So like it's like implied that this world is like our world now, but something happened that changed that, and now it's like going crazy everywhere. So we're learning more about that here, and what they can do to just end all the seasons, as I said. So the stakes are even higher in this book, and we're following a lot more diverse characters. But still, Isun is like the main character here. And we're also following Nasun, who is Isun's daughter, as she comes into her powers and all of that. And just the world itself and how they can save this world, pretty much. And we're just learning a lot more in this book. I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars. I'm currently reading, again, the third book. And we're getting a lot more. And it's just more, and I love it. Because this world is so interesting. And just how we're probably gonna get to the end is, I feel like it's gonna be super epic and amazing. So I really like this book. So those are all of the books that I read for the month of May. Can you tell I'm trying to like do this really fast? I don't want to have a 40-minute clip of me just talking about books. But those are all of the 8 books that I've read for this month, and I think it's a really good reading month. Like there are, you know, some books that it took me quite a bit of time to get into because of my schedule, honestly, and just how I was feeling in terms of reading. So that's really my fault. As I said before in my vlog, if you guys haven't seen it, I can link it up somewhere here. My grandma and my aunt are here, so they're staying in my room, so it's gonna be very hard for me to find some time to read and to film. I'm filming right now. I found some time to film, so that's really good. So I probably won't be reading a lot, but so far I'm like already halfway through the third book almost. So I want to finish that today, probably not, probably tomorrow, and then I'll maybe start Dreams of Gods and Monsters tomorrow as well. We'll see, because we definitely want to take my grandma and my aunt around. So enough of that babbling. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any thoughts, if you agree with what I said, if you think I missed something about these books, tell me in the comments down below. Share me your thoughts about these if you've read them, and if you're planning on reading them as well, what you're looking forward to in these books. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out some of my other videos right here, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye!